Workaholic Billionaire gets a call from the hospital during an important meeting. His son was born. The pristine glass walls of McConnell Design Associates towered over downtown Toronto's bustling financial district, reflecting the late February sunset in shades of amber and gold. Inside his corner office, Ethan McConnell stood before a sprawling design board, his keen eyes scrutinizing every detail of the latest luxury hotel project. His fingers, calloused from years of sketching, traced the clean lines of the blueprint with practiced precision. "Mr. McConnell?" His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom, breaking his concentration. "Your wife is on line 1. She says it's urgent." Ethan's jaw tightened. He'd already missed 2 of Harper's prenatal appointments this month, and her due date wasn't for another week. "Tell her I'll call back in 20 minutes. I'm in the middle of—" "Ethan." Harper's voice cut through, stronger and more determined than he'd ever heard it. "My water just broke." The blue marker slipped from his fingers, leaving an angry streak across the pristine white paper. For a moment he stood frozen, his mind struggling to process the words. Then, like a switch being flipped, adrenaline surged through his body. "Where are you?" He was already grabbing his coat, his perfectly organized desk forgotten. At home. Her breath hitched, and he could hear the pain in her voice. "I was working on some photos when—" She paused, and he heard her sharp intake of breath. "The contractions are getting stronger. Don't move, I'm coming." He rushed past his startled assistant, nearly colliding with a junior architect. "Cancel my meetings for the next 2 days," he called over his shoulder, already halfway to the elevator. The 20-minute drive home became an eternity. Every red light felt like a personal affront. Every slow driver an obstacle between him and his wife. His hands gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white, his mind racing with possibilities. They had a plan for this. They'd attended the classes, packed the hospital bag, rehearsed the route. But now, faced with the reality, Ethan felt completely unprepared. When he finally pulled into their driveway in Rosedale, he found Harper sitting on the front steps, her camera bag beside her, one hand pressed against her swollen belly. The sight stopped him cold. Even in pain, she looked beautiful. Her dark skin glowing in the fading light, her braids pulled back in a neat bun. She'd always been the stronger one, he realized, watching as she managed to smile despite the contraction gripping her body. "The bag's by the door," she said when he reached her, her voice steady despite the circumstances. "I tried calling Dr. Patterson, but—" "I'll handle it," Ethan interrupted, helping her to her feet. For once in his life, he didn't have a blueprint to follow, no carefully calculated plan to execute. All he knew was that his wife needed him, truly needed him, and he couldn't fail her now. The drive to Toronto General Hospital passed in a blur of traffic lights and Harper's measured breathing. Ethan found himself talking continuously, filling the silence with reassurances he wasn't sure he believed. "Everything's going to be fine. We're almost there. You're doing great." Harper's hand found his on the gear shift, her fingers intertwining with his. "Ethan," she said softly during a brief respite between contractions, "I know you're scared. It's okay. I am too." The simple admission, the gentle understanding in her voice, hit him harder than any client criticism ever had. How many times had she been there for him, supporting his dreams, his ambitions, while he'd barely noticed her own fears and hopes? The hospital staff moved with practiced efficiency, whisking Harper away to the maternity ward, while Ethan struggled with paperwork. His usually precise handwriting now a scattered mess. By the time he made it to her room, she was already changed into a hospital gown, monitors beeping steadily around her. Hours blended together in a symphony of medical terms and Harper's increasingly intense contractions. Ethan found himself doing things he never imagined, holding cool compresses to her forehead, massaging her lower back, letting her crush his hand while waves of pain washed over her. For the first time in years, his phone lay forgotten in his coat pocket, the outside world completely irrelevant. "I can't," Harper gasped during a particularly strong contraction, tears streaming down her face. "I can't do this anymore." "Yes, you can." Ethan surprised himself with the firmness in his voice. He moved closer, letting her rest her head against his chest. "You're the strongest person I know, Harper. You've been carrying this baby, carrying us both for so long. Let me help you carry this now." She looked up at him then, really looked at him, and he saw years of loneliness and quiet resignation in her eyes. "Don't let go," she whispered. "Never again," he promised, and for the first time in their marriage, he meant it completely. When their son finally arrived, announcing his presence with a powerful cry that filled the delivery room, Ethan felt the carefully constructed walls of his world crumble. Liam McConnell was tiny and perfect, his skin a beautiful blend of his parents', his little fists already reaching for the world around him. "Would you like to hold your son?" the nurse asked, and Ethan found himself nodding, though his arms felt too stiff, too unsuited for such a precious cargo. The moment they placed Liam in his arms, everything changed. The weight of his son, so light yet so significant, shattered every preconception Ethan had about success and legacy. Here was something he hadn't designed or planned, something more, beautiful than any building he could ever create. "He has your nose," Harper said softly, her voice tired but filled with joy. She reached out, touching Liam's tiny hand with her finger, and the baby instinctively grabbed it. Ethan watched the interaction, saw the pure love radiating from Harper's exhausted face, and felt shame wash over him. How many moments like this had he missed? How many times had he chosen a client meeting over dinner with his wife, a project, deadline over her photography exhibition? "I'm sorry," he whispered, carefully sitting on the edge of her bed. "For everything, for not being there, for making you think you and this us weren't the most important thing in my life." Harper's free hand found his cheek, her touch gentle despite her fatigue. "Show me," she said simply. "Show me it's different now." Liam squirmed in his arms, his little face scrunching up before relaxing again. Ethan looked down at his son, then at his wife, and made a silent vow. The man who walked into that hospital, the architect obsessed with perfection, the husband who took his wife's support for granted, would not be the man walking out. His son deserved better. Harper deserved better. As the first light of dawn painted the Toronto skyline in soft pastels, the McConnell family shared their first moments together. Outside that room, deadlines loomed and clients waited, but for Ethan the world had shifted on its axis. Success was no longer measured in square footage and design awards, but in the steady breathing of his newborn son and the warm smile of his wife. The journey ahead would not be easy. Years of ingrained habits and professional obsession wouldn't disappear overnight. But as Ethan watched Harper finally drift off to sleep, Liam secured in the hospital bassinet beside her, he knew, with absolute certainty, that this was his true legacy. Not the buildings that reached for the sky, but the family that grounded him to earth. In the quiet of that hospital room, while Toronto awakened to another busy day, Ethan McConnell learned the most important lesson of his life. Sometimes the greatest achievements come not from what we build with our hands, but from what we build with our hearts. 3 weeks after Liam's birth, Harper woke to an unfamiliar sound. Not the baby's crying, she'd grown accustomed to that, but the gentle murmur of her husband's voice floating through the baby monitor. Grabbing her phone, she checked the time. 3:47 a.m. "And this right here," Ethan was saying softly, "is called the Falling Water House. Frank Lloyd Wright designed it to blend perfectly with its natural surroundings. One day, I'll take you there." Harper slipped out of bed, padding quietly down the hallway of their Rosedale home. She paused in the doorway of the nursery, her heart catching at the sight before her. Ethan, still in his dress shirt and slacks from yesterday, sat in the rocking chair with Liam cradled against his chest. A thick architecture book lay open on his lap. "Your daddy used to think buildings were the most important things in the world," he continued, his finger tracing the page. "But now what?" Harper asked softly. Ethan looked up, not startled but aware, as if he'd sensed her presence. All along, in the soft glow of the nightlight, she could see the dark circles under his eyes, the loosened tie, the day's stubble on his jaw. Yet something was different. The perpetual tension in his shoulders, the one she'd grown used to over their years together, had softened. "Now I know better," he answered, carefully closing the book. Liam stirred slightly but remained asleep, his tiny fist clutching Ethan's shirt. Did I wake you? Harper shook her head, moving into the room. I heard voices. I thought... She trailed off, not wanting to voice her assumption that he'd be gone back at the office like so many nights before. You thought I'd left for work? The pain in his voice was unexpected. Harper, I promised... I know you did. She perched on the window seat, drawing her knees up to her chest. Outside, Toronto's lights twinkled like earthbound stars. But promises are easy to make in hospital rooms, Ethan. Living them is harder. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken words. Liam's soft breathing provided a gentle counterpoint to the weight of the moment. Finally, Ethan spoke, his voice low and measured. Do you remember our first apartment? That tiny place, in Liberty Village? Harper smiled despite herself. The one with the leaky faucet and the view of the parking lot, and the radiator that sounded like a dying whale. Ethan shifted Liam slightly, his movements careful and practiced, so different from the awkward father of 3 weeks ago. I was so focused on getting out of there, on proving myself, that I missed what made it special. The morning light, Harper whispered, remembering how it would turn the whole place golden, and how you'd grab your camera every time, trying to capture it. Ethan's eyes met hers across the room. I used to think you were wasting time, photographing something so ordinary. Now I realize you saw the beauty I was too busy to notice. Harper felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. She blinked them away, unwilling to let hope take root too quickly. Ethan! A sharp ring cut through the moment. Ethan's phone, lying on the side table, lit up with an incoming call. Harper recognized the number. Bernard Walsh, their biggest client, known for his middle-of-the-night demands. Ethan didn't move. The phone continued ringing, its harsh tone threatening to wake Liam. Still, Ethan remained in the rocking chair, his eyes fixed on their son's sleeping face. You should get that, Harper said automatically, the words familiar after years of interrupted moments. No. Ethan's response was quiet, but firm. I shouldn't. The phone fell silent. In the stillness that followed, Harper felt something shift between them, like tectonic plates realigning after years of pressure. He'll call someone else, Ethan continued, still looking at Liam. The world won't end if I'm not available at 4 in the morning. Won't it? Harper couldn't keep the bitterness from her voice. That's not what you used to say. I used to say a lot of things. Ethan stood carefully, moving to place Liam in his crib. His hands lingered on the rail, knuckles white with tension. I used to think success meant never saying no, never stopping, never... He turned to face her. Never seeing how much I was hurting you. Harper wrapped her arms tighter around herself, protecting against the vulnerability of the moment. What changed? Everything. Ethan moved closer, kneeling before her window seat perch. When they placed him in my arms, it was like seeing colors for the first time after living in black and white. And then I looked at you, really looked at you, and realized I'd been colorblind for years. Pretty words don't fix everything, Harper whispered, though her hand betrayed her, reaching out to touch his cheek. No, they don't. Ethan leaned into her touch. But actions might, if you'll let me try. The phone buzzed again, this time with a text. Neither of them moved to check it. I'm scared, Harper admitted, voicing the fear that had haunted her since the hospital. I'm scared this is temporary, that once the newness wears off, once work gets demanding again. I can't promise I won't make mistakes, Ethan interrupted, taking her hand in his, but I can promise that every time I do, I'll remember this moment. I'll remember what matters most. Liam chose that moment to stir, his little face scrunching up in preparation for a cry. Harper moved instinctively to stand, but Ethan was already there. I've got him, he said, lifting their son with gentle confidence. You've been up with him all day, get some rest. Harper watched as Ethan settled back into the rocking chair, positioning Liam for a feeding with the bottle they kept ready. The sight was so foreign yet so right. Her workaholic husband, the man who once scheduled bathroom breaks, now completely absorbed in the simple act of feeding their child. You know, she said, rising from the window seat, there's room for 2 in that chair. Ethan's smile, rare and genuine, lit up his tired face. He shifted slightly, making space for her to slide in beside him. It was a tight fit, but as Harper settled against his shoulder, Liam's warm weight across both their laps, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Peace. "Tell me more about Falling Water," she murmured, reaching for the discarded architecture book. And so, in the key, quiet hours before dawn, while Toronto slept and phones buzzed unheeded, the McConnells began building something new, not with steel and glass but with whispered stories, shared warmth, and the tentative foundation of renewed trust. Outside their window, the city's lights continued their eternal dance, but inside the nursery, Ethan McConnell was finally learning to see the golden morning light that had been there all along. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of McConnell Design Associates, casting long shadows across the conference room table. Ethan stood at the head, his tie slightly crooked, a small detail that would have been unthinkable 6 weeks ago. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, evidence of another night spent walking the halls with a colicky Liam. "The Beijing developers are threatening to pull out," Oliver Reed, his senior partner, announced to the room. "They're saying our recent design submissions lack the innovation they've come to expect from us." Ethan's fingers tightened around his coffee cup. The Beijing project, a revolutionary eco-friendly skyscraper, had been his baby long before Liam arrived. Now, like everything else in his life, it teetered on the edge of chaos. "Show me the latest renderings," he demanded, setting down his cup. The image that appeared on the screen made him wince. The design was competent but safe, lacking the spark that had built his reputation. "This isn't what I approved." "No," Oliver agreed, his tone carefully neutral. "This is what your team produced while you were out last week for your son's checkup." The words hung in the air like smoke. Ethan felt the weight of every eye in the room, the unspoken judgment of colleagues who'd never seen him prioritize anything over work. His phone buzzed in his pocket, Harper's ringtone. He ignored it, focusing on the screen. "We'll need to completely redesign the environmental integration system. Get the team." The phone buzzed again, more insistent. This time, then again. "Excuse me," he muttered, stepping out of the conference room. "Harper, what's wrong?" "Liam's fever won't break." Her voice was tight with worry. "The pediatrician wants to see him right away. I know you're in meetings, but I'm on my way." The words came automatically, even as his mind raced through the implications. The Beijing presentation was in 2 hours. The developers had flown in specifically to meet with him. "Ethan?" Oliver stood in the doorway, concern etched on his weathered face. "The team's waiting." "My son's sick." Ethan was already gathering his coat, his movements jerky with tension. "I have to—" "The Beijing team flew 14 hours for this meeting." Oliver's voice hardened. "They're not interested in meeting with anyone else. This could make or break us." Ethan froze, caught between two impossible choices. Through the glass walls, he could see his team huddled over laptops, trying to salvage a project that was slipping away. His legacy, everything he'd built over the last decade, hung in the balance. "I'll handle the pediatrician," Harper said softly through the phone, reading his silence. "You stay, it's fine." But it wasn't fine. He could hear the resignation in her voice, the same tone she'd used countless times before when his work took precedence, the same tone he'd promised himself he'd never cause again. "No," he said firmly, surprising both Harper and himself. "I'm coming home. Oliver, reschedule the meeting." "They won't reschedule." Oliver stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Ethan, think about what you're doing. 30 people's jobs depend on this contract. Your son has 2 parents. This company has only 1 leader." The words hit home, stirring the doubt that had been growing over the past weeks. Was he being selfish, putting his family before the livelihoods of his employees? Was it possible to be both the father he wanted to be and the leader his company needed? His phone chimed with a new message, a photo from Harper. Liam lay in his crib, his normally cheerful face flushed with fever, tiny hands curled into fists. The sight made Ethan's chest tight. "You're right," he told Oliver, straightening his tie. "This company needs a leader." He pressed the phone to his ear again. "Harper, I'm on my way. Text me the pediatrician's address." "But the Beijing team will have to understand that they're not dealing with just an architect anymore." Ethan grabbed his briefcase, already moving toward the elevator. Send them the preliminary designs. If they don't like them, they can find another firm. The ride to the pediatrician's office was a blur of traffic and mounting anxiety. When he arrived, Harper was in the waiting room, Liam fussy in her arms. The surprise on her face when she saw him made his heart ache. "You came," she whispered, as he sat beside her, reaching for their son. "Of course I came." Ethan cradled Liam, close, feeling the heat radiating from his small body. "He's burning up. They'll call us back soon." Harper leaned against his shoulder, her exhaustion evident. "I didn't expect, with the Beijing meeting." "Hey." Ethan turned to face her, keeping his voice low in the quiet waiting room. "Remember what you told me the day he was born, about showing you it was different now?" Harper nodded, her eyes suspiciously bright. "This is me showing you." He shifted Liam gently as a nurse called their name. "Everything else can wait." The next few hours passed in a parade of examinations, tests, and worried consultations. "An ear infection," the doctor finally declared. "Painful but treatable." Through it all, Ethan stayed, holding Liam during blood draws, memorizing dosage instructions, asking questions that revealed how much research he'd been doing on pediatric health. It wasn't until they were home, Liam finally sleeping peacefully thanks to medication, that reality crashed back in. Dozens of missed calls lit up Ethan's phone. Emails marked urgent filled his inbox. The Beijing team had indeed walked away, taking their multi-million-dollar contract with them. "How bad is it?" Harper asked, finding him in his home office, staring at his laptop screen. "Bad." He ran a hand through his hair, disheveled from the long day. "Oliver's furious. The board's calling an emergency meeting. We might lose other clients over this." Harper perched on the edge of his desk, her presence a comfort he'd once taken for granted. "Do you regret it?" Ethan looked up at her, really looked at her. In the soft evening light, he could see the worry lines around her eyes, the grey strands starting to appear in her dark hair. Evidence of years spent supporting his dreams while neglecting her own. "No," he said firmly, closing the laptop. "The company can recover. Contracts can be replaced. But these moments with you and Liam, they're irreplaceable." "It won't be easy," Harper warned, but her hand found his, squeezing gently. "Your whole life has been about the work. Maybe it's time for a new blueprint." Ethan stood, pulling her into his arms. One with a better foundation. Through the baby monitor, they heard Liam beginning to stir. Harper moved to go to him, but Ethan held her back. "Let me," he said. "You've been with him all day. Get some rest." As he headed toward the nursery, Harper's voice stopped him. "Ethan, thank you for choosing us today." He turned back, framed in the doorway of his home office, a space that had once been his sanctuary of solitude. "I'm choosing us every day from now on," he promised, "even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." The words hung in the air between them, not just a promise but a challenge to himself. In the nursery, Liam waited, his fevered cries a reminder that some blueprints were worth destroying to build something better in their place. As Ethan lifted his son, feeling the heat of infection still burning through his small body, he realized that success had a different temperature now, not the cold precision of architectural awards, but the warm weight of his child in his arms, the gentle touch of his wife's hand, the fever-hot pursuit of a love worth rearranging his world for. Harper stood in her home studio, running her fingers over her beloved Nikon D850. Dust had gathered on the lens cap, 2 months of maternal leave reducing her primary creative outlet to a shelf decoration. Outside, Toronto's autumn painted the Rosedale neighborhood in brilliant oranges and reds, the kind of light that once would have had her rushing out with her camera bag. "You should go," Ethan said from the doorway, Liam sleeping peacefully against his shoulder. "The light's perfect." She turned, surprised not just by his presence but by his observation. The old Ethan would never have noticed the quality of light, too absorbed in blueprints and client meetings to care about golden hour. "I can't," she gestured vaguely toward Liam. "He'll need to feed soon and I have bottles ready." Ethan moved into the room, his free hand reaching for her camera. And a flexible work schedule now, remember? Take advantage of my unemployment while it lasts. The attempt at humor fell flat. 3 weeks had passed since the Beijing project collapsed, and though Ethan maintained his dedication to their family, Harper couldn't shake the guilt. His career crisis was partially her fault, wasn't it? If she hadn't called about Liam's fever. "Hey!" Ethan's voice cut through her spiral. "I know that look. Stop blaming yourself for my choices." "I'm not—" She stopped, catching herself in the lie. "It's just, you've given up so much." "Given up?" Ethan raised an eyebrow, shifting Liam slightly. "Or gained perspective. Besides, Oliver called yesterday. We're restructuring some things, but the firm will survive. Now," he lifted the camera, offering it to her. "When was the last time you did something just for you?" Harper took the camera, its weight familiar yet somehow foreign in her hands. When was the last time? Before Liam, certainly. Maybe even before marriage, when her photography was more than just a hobby squeezed between supporting Ethan's dreams. "I don't even know where I'd go," she admitted. "Start with the park." Ethan was already moving toward her camera bag, expertly balancing Liam while he reached for it. "Remember that series you were planning? About urban nature and human connection?" She stared at him. "You remember that?" "I remember everything you've ever told me about your work." His voice softened. "I just didn't always show it." 20. Minutes later, Harper found herself walking through Riverdale Park East, camera in hand. The afternoon light filtered through the trees, creating the exact conditions she'd dreamed of capturing months ago. Yet her finger hesitated over the shutter. Her phone buzzed, a message from Ethan, a photo of him and Liam, both sporting exaggerated pouts. "We miss you," the caption read, "but take your time. We're practicing our sad faces for when you get home." Something loosened in her chest. She raised her camera, beginning to see the world through her lens again. A young couple on a bench, their fingers intertwined. An elderly man throwing breadcrumbs to eager pigeons. A child in a red coat, spinning through falling leaves. Click, click, click. Each shot felt like remembering a language she'd forgotten she knew. The way light could tell stories, how shadows could hold secrets. The perfect moment when everything aligned into something meaningful. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Ethan. "Liam says your sad boys need dinner. Ty from that place you love?" Harper smiled, typing back. "The place that you said was too unprofessional for client meetings. The very same. I'm evolving. Also, Liam has sophisticated taste." She laughed out loud, drawing curious glances from passers-by. The sound surprised her. When had she last laughed so freely? As the sun began to set, Harper made her way home, her memory card full and her spirit lighter than it had been in months. She found Ethan in the kitchen, attempting to eat pad thai one-handed while holding Liam. "Here," she said, setting down her camera bag. "Let me take him." "No." Ethan nodded toward her laptop on the counter. "Upload your photos first. I want to see what you captured." "They're probably not any good," she hedged. "I'm out of practice." "Harper McConnell," Ethan said firmly, "I've never seen you take a bad photograph. Even that terrible attempt at food photography I made you do for the firm's website turned out amazing." She connected her camera to the laptop, trying to ignore the flutter of anxiety as the images loaded. Ethan moved behind her, peering over her shoulder as she began to scroll through them. "These are—" He paused, adjusting Liam as he leaned closer. "Harper, these are extraordinary." "You're biased." "I'm honest." He pointed to one image, the elderly man with his pigeons, captured in a moment of pure joy. "This is what you've always been best at, seeing the beauty in ordinary moments." Harper stared at the photo, really seeing it for the first time. The composition, the light, the emotion. It was good. Really good. "You know," Ethan said carefully, "the firm's going through rebranding. We could use a new perspective for our marketing materials. Someone who sees the human side of architecture, not just the technical aspects." She turned to face him. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm suggesting a collaboration." He shifted Liam to his other shoulder. "Completely. On your terms, your vision, your schedule. No more fitting yourself into my blueprint." "I don't know." Harper bit her lip. Working together after everything. Think about it. Ethan pressed a kiss to her temple. No pressure. But Harper, don't let fear of the past keep you from building your future. Someone very wise taught me that recently. Liam chose that moment to make his presence known, his hungry cries filling the kitchen. Harper reached for him automatically, but her eyes stayed on the laptop screen, on the images that proved she hadn't lost herself entirely to motherhood and marriage. I'll think about it, she promised, settling into her favorite chair to feed Liam. But first, tell me honestly, how many times did you have to change his outfit while I was gone? Ethan's guilty laugh told her everything. Let's just say I have a new appreciation for your multitasking abilities. Also, we may need to go shopping for new onesies. As they shared dinner between baby duties, Harper felt something shift. Inside her, the woman who had set aside her dreams, who had learned to be content with supporting someone else's vision, she was waking up. And maybe, just maybe, her awakening was exactly what they all needed. Later that night, after Liam was asleep, Harper returned to her studio. She picked up her camera again, but this time she turned it toward home. Ethan, in his reading glasses, reviewing documents on the couch. The soft glow of Liam's nightlight, spilling into the hallway. Their family, imperfect but evolving, captured through her lens. Click. The boardroom of McConnell Design Associates felt smaller than Ethan remembered. Maybe it was the 8 stern faces staring back at him, or perhaps it was the weight of the past month's decisions pressing in from all sides. He stood at the head of the table, his presentation on restructuring the firm's leadership projected behind him. So, let me get this straight. Richard Davidson, the eldest board member, leaned forward in his leather chair. You want to step back from direct project management to focus on overall vision and strategy. The same month we lost the Beijing contract? Ethan met his gaze steadily. Yes, I'm proposing we promote Oliver Reed to managing director and create a more distributed leadership structure. The structure that made this firm successful, Richard countered, is you being hands-on with every major project. That's what clients pay for, the Ethan McConnell touch. A notification lit up Ethan's phone on the table. Harper had sent a video. He resisted the urge to check it, knowing it was probably Liam's first attempt at rolling over, another milestone he'd promised not to miss. Times change, Ethan said, clicking to the next slide. And so must we. Oliver has been with us for 15 years. He knows our process, our clients. He's not you. Richard's interruption was sharp. And he didn't lose us the Beijing contract. The unspoken accusation hung in the air. Ethan's fingers tightened on his presentation remote. No, he didn't. I made that call, and I stand by it. Because your son had a fever. Another board member, Victoria Chen, spoke up. Her tone was gentler, but no less concerned. Ethan, we all understand wanting to be there for family, but there has to be a balance. A balance? Ethan's laugh held no humor. Like missing my wife's photography exhibitions, or scheduling client calls during my son's pediatrician appointments? That kind of balance? The room fell silent. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Toronto's financial district sprawled below, a concrete maze he'd helped shape. How many nights had he spent in this room, designing other people's dreams while his own life passed by in a blur of deadlines and demands? His phone buzzed again, then again. Excuse me, he said, finally checking the screen. 3 messages. From Harper. Liam rolled over. Don't worry, I got it on video. Everything okay at the meeting? Ethan. Oliver's voice cut through his thoughts. His longtime friend and colleague had been quiet until now. Maybe we should take a break. No. Ethan set his phone down, screen dark. No more breaks. No more putting off the hard conversations. He turned back to the board. You're right, I built this firm. Every award, every landmark project, they all have my name on them. And do you know what I realized when my son was born? He clicked through his presentation, past the charts and projections, to a photograph. Harper had taken it last week. Ethan asleep in his home office, Liam curled on his chest, blueprints scattered around them. I realized that legacy isn't just about what we build, it's about who we become while building it. He gestured to the image. This firm needs to evolve, Not because I'm stepping back, but because we have the opportunity to become something better, something that values both excellence and humanity. Victoria leaned forward, studying the proposal numbers. The restructuring will cost us. Initially, yes, Ethan acknowledged, but look at the long-term projections. A distributed leadership model means we can handle more projects simultaneously. It means not losing momentum when one person needs to step away. It means creating a sustainable future. And if clients leave, Richard challenged, if they want the old Ethan McConnell, then they're not the clients we need anymore. The words came easily, with a certainty that surprised even him. We've always prided ourselves on innovation in design. Why not in how we operate? His phone lit up again, another message from Harper. Just checked the mail. Remember that photography competition I entered? The one you encouraged me to try? Ethan's heart skipped. He'd helped her submit the entry last month, staying up late to perfect her portfolio while she nursed Liam. She'd been so nervous, convinced she'd lost her edge during her years of supporting his career. 2 minutes, he told the board, stepping away to call Harper. She answered on the first ring. I got in. They want to feature my work in their winter showcase. Harper, that's amazing. His voice echoed in the quiet boardroom, but he didn't care. I told you they'd love your perspective. I couldn't have done it without you. She paused. How's your meeting? Ethan looked back at the board members, who were reviewing his proposal with varying degrees of skepticism. Still in progress, but Harper, I'm proud of you. Back at you, she said softly. Now go change the world, one architectural firm at a time. Ending the call, Ethan returned to the head of the table with renewed purpose. While I was gone, he said, my wife just found out she's been selected for a prestigious photography showcase. Years ago, I would have missed that call. I would have missed her joy, her achievement, all because I was too focused on maintaining an image of success that costs too much. He clicked to the final slide, a blueprint but not of a building. It showed the new organizational structure, with multiple leaders, collaborative teams, and built-in flexibility. We have an opportunity here, he continued, to show our industry that greatness doesn't require sacrifice. That innovation can apply to how we work, not just what we create. Yes, we lost the Beijing contract, but what if we could build something more valuable? A firm that attracts talent because we understand that life exists outside these walls? Oliver stood, moving to join him. I support this, he said simply, not just as Ethan's friend, but as someone who's watched countless talented architects burn out trying to maintain impossible standards. One by one, the board members began to engage. Victoria asked about implementation timelines. Richard questioned the financial projections, but with genuine curiosity rather than skepticism. The conversation shifted from what they might lose to what they could become. Hours later, Ethan finally headed home. The restructuring wasn't fully approved yet, but they'd made progress. Real, meaningful progress. He found Harper in the nursery, camera in hand, documenting Liam's newfound rolling abilities. Their son's laughter echoed through the room, a sound that made every difficult conversation worth it. How did it go? Harper asked, lowering her camera. Ethan scooped up Liam, breathing in his baby scent. They're considering it, but more importantly, he pulled her close with his free arm. Tell me about your showcase. Tell me everything. As Harper excitedly shared her news, Ethan felt the day's tension melt away. Outside his window, the city he'd helped shape continued its endless dance of light and shadow. But inside this room, holding his family close, he was building something far more precious, a life where success was measured in moments, not monuments. You know, Harper said later as they watched Liam finally drift off to sleep, you're still changing the world, just in a different way now. Ethan thought about the blueprints waiting on his desk, the restructuring proposal that could transform his industry's approach to work-life balance. Maybe, he replied, we both are. Harper's photography studio had transformed over the past 2 weeks. What was once a quiet space filled with dormant equipment now buzzed with creative energy. Contact sheets covered her desk, each one filled, with images capturing the human side of Toronto's architectural landmarks. In the corner, Liam played contentedly in his portable crib, occasionally cooing at the shadows the afternoon sun cast through the window. "These are incredible," Ethan said, studying the prints she'd selected for the winter showcase. He paused at one particular image, a construction worker eating lunch on a steel beam, the city sprawled beneath him like a dream. "You've always seen what I missed in my own projects. That's because you see the structures," Harper replied, adjusting her camera settings for the next shoot. "I see the stories they contain." A notification chimed on Ethan's phone. "Speaking of stories, Oliver just confirmed the Morgan proposal meeting for tomorrow. They're interested in our new approach." Harper lowered her camera, studying her husband's face. 2 months had passed since the board meeting, and while the restructuring was slowly taking shape, every new client meeting felt like a test. "Are you nervous?" "About the meeting? No." Ethan moved to the portable crib, lifting Liam, who immediately reached for his father's tie. "About leaving this little guy with the new nanny?" "Terrified." "Amara comes highly recommended," Harper reminded him, though her own stomach churned at the thought. They'd interviewed dozens of candidates before finding someone they both trusted. "And it's just for a few hours, while I'm at the shoot and you're at the meeting." I know." Ethan bounced Liam gently, earning a giggle. "It's just, we've never both been gone at the same time before." The reality of their situation settled over them. Tomorrow marked a new chapter, both parents actively pursuing their careers while maintaining their commitment to family. The delicate balance they'd been building felt suddenly precarious. "We could reschedule," Harper offered, though the words tasted bitter. The architectural magazine shoot was a huge opportunity, a chance to showcase her unique perspective on urban landscapes. "The magazine might—" "No," Ethan's voice was firm. "No more putting your dreams on hold. We agreed. Remember, we're doing this together." Harper's phone buzzed, a message from the magazine's art director requesting additional equipment details. As she typed a response, she felt the familiar guilt creeping in. Was it selfish to want both, to be a present mother and a successful photographer? "Stop that," Ethan said, reading her expression. "You're allowed to want things, Harper. You're allowed to be more than just Liam's mother or my wife." "When did you get so wise?" she asked, trying to lighten the moment. "Around the time I realized I was about to lose everything that mattered by trying to have it all the wrong way." He shifted Liam to his hip, approaching her desk. "Look at these photos again. Really look at them." Harper turned to the contact. Sheets. Each image told a story. Workers sharing jokes on their lunch break, families enjoying the public spaces around new buildings, elderly couples resting on benches in architectural shadows. "You see what makes these buildings come alive," Ethan continued. "The human element that turns concrete and steel into something meaningful. That's what we're doing with our life now, building something that has room for all of us to grow." Her cry from the portable crib interrupted the moment, Liam's way of demanding attention. Harper moved to pick him up, but Ethan was already there. "I've got him," he said. "You finished preparing for tomorrow's shoot?" Harper watched them together, marveling at how naturally Ethan had taken to fatherhood once he'd allowed himself to prioritize it. Gone was the man who scheduled every minute of his day. In his place was someone who could handle a client call while expertly changing a diaper. The next morning arrived too quickly. Amara, their new nanny, arrived precisely on time, her warm smile and confident manner helping to ease their anxiety. Still, Harper's heart clenched as she gathered her photography equipment. "We've been over everything twice," Ethan reminded her, checking his own briefcase. "Emergency numbers, feeding schedule, favorite toys." "I assure you," Amara said kindly, already engaging Liam with a new picture book, "your son will be perfectly fine. Go, be brilliant." The drive downtown was quiet, both parents lost in their thoughts. At a red light, Harper reached over and squeezed Ethan's hand. "Remember when you used to tell me that taking risks was part of success?" "I was talking about architectural innovation at the time," he admitted with a small smile. "But yes. Well, this is our biggest risk yet. Both of us chasing our dreams, trusting someone else with our most precious creation." She glanced at him. "Are we crazy?" "Probably." The light turned green and Ethan navigated through the morning traffic, But maybe that's what it takes to build something extraordinary. They parted ways in front of the Morgan building, Ethan heading up to the conference room, Harper setting up her equipment in the plaza. Just before they separated, he pulled her close. "Hey," he whispered, "no matter what happens today, we're in this together." The morning unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance. Harper lost herself in her work, capturing the interplay of light and shadow, of human interaction with architectural space. Through her lens, she saw what she'd always seen: the poetry in everyday moments, the beauty in functional spaces. Meanwhile, 20 floors above, Ethan presented the Morgan team with a revolutionary concept. Not just a building design, but a vision of how architecture could serve both form and function, beauty and practicality. He spoke with passion about creating spaces that enhanced human connection, not just human productivity. By noon, both had achieved small victories. The Morgan team was enthusiastic about the proposal, particularly impressed by Ethan's evolved perspective on urban spaces. Harper's shoot had yielded images that made the art director practically glow with excitement. They met for a quick lunch, both phones constantly checking messages from Amara. Each update included a photo: Liam napping, Liam playing, Liam smiling at the camera. "He's fine," Harper said, though she wasn't sure who she was reassuring. "Better than fine," Ethan agreed, showing her the latest photo of their son thoroughly enjoying his mashed peas. "And so are we." That evening, returning home together, they found Liam and Amara engaged in an elaborate game involving stuffed animals and soft blocks. Their son's face lit up at their arrival, but he wasn't distressed, hadn't been crying for them all day, as they'd feared. After Amara left, they settled into their evening routine: dinner, bath time, bedtime stories. Everything was the same, yet somehow different. They'd proved something today, not just to themselves, but to each other. "Hannah, what I realized today," Harper said later, as they sat in her studio reviewing the day's photos. "We're not just showing Liam that it's possible to chase your dreams. We're showing him it's possible to do it together." Ethan pulled her closer, looking at an image she'd captured of the Morgan building's plaza. In it, a young family sat sharing lunch, the father in a business suit, the mother clearly dressed for a creative profession, their child between them laughing at something beyond the frame. "Like parent, like son," he suggested. Harper smiled, leaning into his embrace. "Like family, like future." Outside, Toronto's lights twinkled like stars, each one a window into another family's story. But in this room, in this moment, the McConnells were writing their own chapter, one where success wasn't measured in individual achievements, but in the strength of their shared journey. The email arrived on a Wednesday morning, just as Harper was reviewing proofs for her upcoming showcase. The sender's name made her pause. Bernard Walsh, Ethan's former top client, the one whose midnight calls she'd learned to dread over the years. "Interesting perspective on architectural photography," the message began. "Your recent work with the Morgan building caught my attention. I'd like to discuss a potential project, a worldwide architectural photography series for my new developments. Full creative control, substantial budget, dinner meeting tomorrow to discuss details." Harper's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Walsh International was expanding aggressively across Asia and Europe. A worldwide photography contract could launch her career to new heights. But Bernard Walsh had also been the client who'd demanded Ethan's attention at all hours, who'd contributed to the workaholic culture she'd fought so hard against. "You should take the meeting," Ethan said that evening after she'd shown him the email. They sat in their kitchen, Liam happily making a mess of his dinner between them. "It feels wrong," Harper admitted, wiping pureed carrots from Liam's chin. "After everything, this is different." Ethan reached across the table, taking her hand. "You're not taking a job that would consume you. You're considering an opportunity that aligns with your vision. A vision that includes being present for our family." She glanced meaningfully at Liam, who chose that moment to dump his sippy cup on the floor. "We'll make it work." Ethan retrieved the cup, his movement practiced and patient. "Besides, you've supported my dreams for years. Let me support yours." The next evening found Harper at Canoe Restaurant, 60 stories above Toronto. Bernard Walsh sat across from her, his legendary intensity focused entirely on her portfolio. "Remarkable work," he said, lingering over a shot of construction workers sharing lunch on a half-finished skyscraper. "You capture the humanity in these spaces. It's exactly what we need." "Thank you." Harper took a sip of water, steeling herself. "But before we discuss details, I need to be clear about something. I'm a mother first. That means no last minute. International flights, no midnight demands." Walsh's eyebrows rose. "You sound like your husband these days. I sound like someone who knows what matters." Harper met his gaze steadily. "If that's a problem, actually—" Walsh leaned back, a surprising smile crossing his face. "It's refreshing. Your husband's new approach, distributing leadership, emphasizing work-life balance. It's been interesting to watch. Successful, too, from what I hear." "You've been following the firm?" "I follow all significant changes in the industry." He pulled out a tablet, pulling up a presentation. "Which brings me to my real proposal. Yes, I want you to photograph our international projects, but more than that, I want you both." Harper's confusion must have shown on her face because Walsh continued, his words picking up speed with enthusiasm. "A documentary series, Building Better, Architecture for the Modern Family. Following you and Ethan as you balance your careers and family life while revolutionizing how the industry approaches work-life integration. Your photography, his architecture, your shared story." The proposal hung in the air between them. Harper's mind raced with implications. A documentary meant exposure, scrutiny, their private life becoming public property. "I'll need to discuss this with Ethan," she said carefully. "Of course." Walsh smiled again, but this time there was a hint of his old intensity. "But remember, opportunities like this are rare. The industry is changing, and your family could be at the forefront of that change." Later that night, after relieving Amara and putting Liam to bed, Harper found Ethan in his home office. She perched on the edge of his desk, just like she used to in the early days of their marriage. "That bad?" he asked, noting her expression. She told him everything: the photography contract, the documentary proposal, Walsh's vision of them. As the face of industry change, Ethan listened without interrupting, his fingers absently playing with a pencil. "Well," he said finally, "it's certainly not what I expected." "It's too much," Harper said quickly. "Liam's not even 6 months old. We're just finding our rhythm. And the pressure of cameras, public scrutiny. But," she sighed, recognizing the gentle probe in his voice, "but it could make a difference. Show other families in high-pressure careers that there's another way, that you can be ambitious and present, successful and connected." Ethan stood, moving to the window. The city sprawled before them, a testament to ambition and dreams. "Remember what you told me when I was restructuring the firm, that sometimes the scariest changes lead to the best outcomes?" "This is different," Harper protested. "This is our family, our private life. Is it really so different?" He turned to face her. "We've been trying to change things from the inside. Me with the firm's structure, you with your perspective on architectural photography. Maybe this is a chance to create bigger change by becoming some kind of corporate power couple poster family." The words came out sharper than intended. "By being honest." Ethan moved closer, taking her hands, showing the messy reality of building a life that matters. The late-night diaper changes, the missed opportunities, the constant negotiation of priorities. Not a perfect family, but a real one. Harper thought about her photography, how she always sought to capture authentic moments, the joy, the struggle, the quiet victories of everyday life. Wasn't this just an extension of that? "We'd need boundaries," she said slowly. "Clear ones. Time without cameras, space that's just ours." "Absolutely." Ethan pulled her into his arms. "We set the terms. We control the narrative." A cry through the baby monitor interrupted their discussion. They shared a look, years of understanding, passing between them. "Your turn," Harper said, but she followed him to the nursery anyway. They found Liam standing in his crib, tears already forgotten as he reached for them. Together they soothed him back to sleep, their movements synchronized by months of practice. You know, Harper whispered as they watched their son drift off. If we do this, he'll have quite a story to look back on someday. Our own architectural blueprint, Ethan agreed. Building a life one choice at a time. Later, composing her response to Walsh, Harper felt a familiar mix of excitement and fear. They were stepping into unknown territory, but wasn't that what they'd been doing since Liam's birth? Taking risks, challenging norms, building something new. Send it, Ethan encouraged, reading over her shoulder. The email was simple. Let's discuss terms. Our family, our way. Outside their window, Toronto's lights reflected off the clouds, creating a soft glow. Somewhere in those illuminated buildings, other families were making their own choices, fighting their own battles between ambition and connection. Maybe, just maybe, their story could help light the way. The morning light filtered through the kitchen windows as the documentary crew set up their equipment. Harper watched from behind her own camera, documenting the strange transformation of their private space into a production set. Liam, secure in his high chair, seemed fascinated by the new faces and equipment invading his domain. Remember, Ethan was saying to the production team, his architect's precision evident in every word. No shots of Liam's face, profile angles only, and limited exposure. The director, Naomi Chen, nodded in agreement. They'd spent weeks negotiating terms, establishing boundaries, and creating a framework that would protect their family while still telling their story authentically. Now, on the first day of filming, theory was becoming reality. We'll start with a typical morning routine, Naomi suggested, adjusting her headset. Just pretend we're not here. Harper caught Ethan's eye across the kitchen and suppressed a smile. Pretend the 3 cameras, boom microphone, and half-dozen crew members weren't turning their breakfast into a performance? Sure, no problem. "Dada!" Liam called out, reaching for Ethan with sticky fingers. Without hesitation, Ethan moved to him, his suit jacket already spotted with baby food. "Cut!" Naomi called. "Mr. McConnell, maybe you could—" "No!" Harper's voice was firm. "If we're showing real life, this is it. Messy clothes interrupted. Routines, all of it." A tense moment passed before Naomi nodded slowly. "You're right, let's keep rolling." The morning unfolded in a series of genuine moments caught on film, Ethan juggling client calls while helping Harper pack Liam's diaper bag, Harper reviewing photos for her international series while bouncing Liam on her knee. The careful handoff to Amara, who had agreed to limited filming with additional compensation. It wasn't until they reached McConnell Design Associates that the first real challenge emerged. The office had been prepped for filming, but the energy was different. Employees who normally worked with casual efficiency now seemed stiff, aware of the cameras capturing every interaction. "This isn't working," Ethan muttered to Harper during a break. They stood in his office, the Toronto skyline a familiar backdrop to their conversation. "Everyone's performing instead of working." "Give them time," Harper advised, adjusting his crooked tie, a genuine gesture that made the nearby cameraman shift for a better angle. "They'll forget about the cameras eventually." But as the day progressed, the tension only grew. During a crucial client meeting, the presence of cameras made the potential investors visibly uncomfortable. The natural flow of architectural discussion became stilted, forced. "Maybe we should," the lead investor began, glancing uncertainly at the cameras. "Stop filming," Ethan finished, signaling to Naomi. Privacy for client meetings wasn't just a suggestion, it was a requirement. The cameras powered down, but the damage was done. The investors left without committing to the project, leaving Ethan visibly frustrated. "This was a mistake," he said later, as they reviewed footage in the conference room. "We're compromising the firm's functionality for what?" Harper challenged, shifting Liam in her arms. She'd returned from her own shoot to find Ethan in this mood. "For showing the real challenges of what we're trying to build." "Real?" Ethan gestured to the cameras. "How is any of this real?" "Mr. McConnell," Naomi interjected. "Perhaps we should—" "No," Harper cut in, her photographer's instinct recognizing the moment's importance. "Keep filming. This is exactly what people need to see." She turned to Ethan, ignoring the cameras. "Remember why we agreed to this. To show that change is possible but never easy. Well, this is the hard part. The messy middle where we figure out how to balance everything. Liam chose that moment to reach for Ethan, his little face scrunching up in preparation for tears. Without thinking, Ethan took him, his business persona melting as their son snuggled into his chest. "See," Harper said softly. "That's real, that's what we're showing, not perfection but intention. Not a smooth path, but a worthy journey." The tension in Ethan's shoulders eased slightly. The client meeting was one meeting. Harper touched his arm, grounding him. "Maybe we need to adjust how we handle business filming, but that doesn't mean the whole project is wrong." Later that evening, after the crew had packed up and left, they reviewed the day's challenges over dinner. Liam played with his blocks. Nearby, blissfully unaware of the complexity his parents were navigating. "We need clearer boundaries," Ethan admitted, pushing his pasta around his plate. "Better protocols for client interactions." "Agreed." Harper reached for her camera, a habit when processing thoughts. "But did you see the footage from this morning? The real moments between meetings? That's going to resonate with people. Is it worth it, though?" Ethan watched as Liam successfully stacked 3 blocks, his face lighting up with achievement. "Putting our lives under a microscope like this?" Harper lowered her camera, considering. "Remember the construction worker I photographed? The one eating lunch on the beam? The shot that caught Walsh's attention? Yes, when I took that photo, he told me something interesting. He said that seeing people like him in architectural photos made him feel seen, made his contribution to these amazing buildings feel valued." She paused, letting the words sink in. "Maybe that's what we're doing here. Showing other families that their struggles are seen, their efforts to balance it all are valued." Ethan was quiet for a moment, watching their son play. Finally, he said, "We need to be smarter about it, more strategic." "More authentic," Harper corrected. "The struggles are part of the story, including days like today." "Speaking of struggles," Ethan's lips twitched with sudden humor. "Did you notice Oliver's new tie? The one he obviously bought just for filming." Harper laughed, the tension of the day breaking. "And Monica's perfect makeup. I've never seen her wear lipstick in the office before." They continued sharing observations, the conversation shifting, from stress to amusement. Liam crawled over, demanding attention, and they included him in their laughter, creating a moment no camera could perfectly capture. "You know what this reminds me of?" Ethan asked, helping Liam stack another block. "That first architecture project I ever showed you. The one where everything went wrong during construction. The Davidson building?" Harper smiled at the memory, where the client wanted to scrap everything halfway through. "But the final result was better than the original design," Ethan finished, "because we had to get creative, find new solutions." "Are you comparing our life to a building project? Isn't that what we've been doing all along?" He caught her hand across the table. "Drawing up plans, laying foundations, adjusting the design as we go?" Harper squeezed his hand, understanding the metaphor. They were building something unprecedented. A public testament to private choices, a blueprint for others trying to construct lives of meaning and presence. Outside their dining room windows, the documentary crew's vans pulled away into the Toronto night. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new adjustments to their carefully constructed balance. But for now, in this moment, they were just a family, sharing dinner, building their future one block at a time. The first sign of trouble came through Oliver's urgent text. "Emergency board meeting called. Walsh is making moves. Get here now." Ethan stared at his phone screen, his heart racing. It was Saturday morning, family time sacred and camera-free per their documentary agreement. Harper was preparing for her international photography tour, leaving in 2 days for a carefully scheduled 3-week shoot across Walsh's Asian developments. "Bad news?" Harper asked, looking up from her equipment checklist. Liam played at her feet, fascinated by the lens caps she kept taking away from him. "I don't know yet." Ethan showed her the message. "But board meetings don't happen on Saturdays unless something's very wrong." Harper's face tightened with concern. The documentary project had been running for 2 months now, garnering unexpected attention in the industry. Their story of balancing family and ambition had struck a chord, but it had also made them visible, vulnerable. "Go," she said, scooping Up, Liam. I'll handle things here. The McConnell Design Associates building felt wrong on a weekend. Too quiet, too empty. In the boardroom, however, the atmosphere crackled with tension. Oliver paced by the windows, while Victoria Chen sat rigid in her chair, a stack of papers before her. "What's happening?" Ethan demanded, closing the door behind him. "Walsh International is launching a hostile takeover," Oliver said without preamble. "They're offering to buy out major shareholders at a premium." The world tilted slightly. Bernard. Walsh, the man currently funding their documentary, the one about to send Harper on an international photography tour, was trying to seize control of his firm. "That's not possible," Ethan said, but Victoria was already sliding documents across the table. "It's not just possible, it's happening," she said grimly. "Walsh has been quietly acquiring shares for months. The documentary, the photography contract. They gave him insider access, let him assess our vulnerabilities. And now he's making his move while Harper's scheduled to be overseas," Oliver added. "Dividing your attention when you'll need it most." Ethan's phone buzzed, Harper asking for an update. His fingers hovered over the screen, mind racing. Their carefully constructed balance, everything they'd built, suddenly felt like a house of cards in a storm. "Options," he managed, his voice tight. "We can fight it," Oliver said, "but we'll need everyone focused, working around the clock. The next 2 weeks are critical." 2 weeks, Ethan laughed humorlessly, when Harper's touring Walsh's properties on the other side of the world. "You have to stop her from going," Victoria said bluntly. "We need both of you here, focused on saving the firm. And if we don't fight, Walsh restructures everything," Oliver replied. "Our vision for work-life balance, gone. The distributed leadership model, dismantled. Everything we've built, everything we've shown is possible through the documentary. He'll use it all to prove that traditional corporate structure is the only way to succeed." Ethan's phone buzzed again, then again. Harper, wondering why he wasn't responding. Harper, who had put her career on hold for years to support his dreams. Harper, who was finally claiming her own space in the world. "I need to make a call," he said, stepping out of the boardroom. He found an empty office, sunlight streaming through windows that suddenly felt like prison bars. Harper answered on the first ring. "That bad?" she asked immediately. He told her everything. The takeover attempt, Walsh's manipulation, the threat to everything they'd built. She listened without interrupting, and he could picture her expression, the way her fingers would be absently reaching for her camera as she processed difficult news. "I'll cancel the tour," she said when he finished. "We'll face this together." "No." The word surprised them both. "No, you won't." "Ethan, remember what you told me when Liam was born? About showing me it was different now. Well, this is me showing you." He pressed his forehead against the cool glass of the window. "You've waited years for this opportunity. I won't let Walsh take it from you. And the firm, everything we've built, will be defended." Ethan watched a family walking on the street below, a child between parents, swinging happily from their hands. "But not by sacrificing your dreams, not again. How will you manage the next 2 weeks?" "Will be hell," he admitted. "But Oliver and I have contingency plans. We've been preparing for something like this, just not from Walsh." There was a long pause. When Harper spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. "The documentary crew will want to film this. Let them." Ethan straightened, decision crystallizing. "Let them show exactly what we're fighting for. The right to build successful careers without destroying our families. The right to choose presence over power." Back in the boardroom, Ethan faced his colleagues with newfound clarity. "Harper's going on the tour," he announced. "And we're going to fight Walsh while maintaining our principles." "That's impossible," Victoria protested. What we need," Ethan interrupted, "is to prove that our model works, that we can handle a crisis without sacrificing everything we value. Oliver, activate the shareholder protection protocols we developed. Victoria, start calling our allies in the industry. We're not just fighting for control of the firm. We're fighting for a different way of doing business." "And you?" Oliver asked. "I'll be working from home 3 days a week as usual, in the office the other 2, maintaining my time with Liam, supporting Harper's career from afar, and coordinating our defense. That's crazy, Victoria muttered. That's the point, Ethan countered. Walsh expects us to abandon our principles under pressure. To prove. Him right about work-life balance being a luxury we can't afford. We're going to prove him wrong. Hours later, Ethan returned home to find Harper and Liam waiting. The documentary crew had already heard about the crisis, probably from Walsh himself, and wanted to start filming immediately. Let them film tomorrow, Harper said, passing him a sleeping Liam. Tonight is for us. Holding his son, watching. His wife sought through camera equipment she refused to repack. Ethan felt something settle in his chest. They were facing their greatest challenge, but for the first time in his career, he knew exactly what mattered most. You know, Harper said softly, when you walked through that door just now, you looked different, lighter somehow. Because I finally understand, he replied, gently swaying with Liam. Success isn't about winning at all costs. It's about choosing what's worth fighting for and what's worth letting go. Outside their window, Toronto's lights began to twinkle on, each one representing another family facing their own choices, their own battles between ambition and connection. Tomorrow, the cameras would roll again, capturing their struggle for the world to see. But tonight, in the quiet of their home, the McConnells held on to what Walsh could never buy, the peace of knowing they were building something bigger than business, stronger than success. A legacy of choices made with love, not fear. The autumn sun painted long shadows across the Morgan Building's plaza as Harper adjusted her camera one last time. 3 weeks had passed in a blur of time zones and FaceTime calls, each architectural, shoot feeling like both a victory and a betrayal. Now back in Toronto, she prepared to capture her final Walsh International property, the one that had started everything. Ready for the last shot? Naomi asked, the documentary cameras rolling. Nearby, they'd been following the story's climax from both sides, Harper's international tour and Ethan's fight to save the firm. Almost. Harper checked her phone. No new messages from Ethan, which could mean anything. The shareholders' meeting had started an hour ago, determining not just the fate of McConnell Design Associates, but the future of everything they'd built together. Through her viewfinder, she studied the Morgan Building's facade. The way light played across its surface reminded her of something Ethan had said years ago. Architecture isn't just about structures, it's about the spaces between them, the way they make people feel, the stories they tell. Her phone buzzed, a message from Oliver. It's time, get to the office. Harper's heart raced as she packed her equipment. The documentary crew followed, their cameras capturing her rapid walk through Toronto's financial district. Every step felt weighted with meaning, every moment pregnant with possibility. The McConnell Design Associates building loomed ahead, its glass exterior reflecting the late afternoon light. In the lobby, Amara waited with Liam, who squealed at the sight of his mother. He wanted to be here, Amara explained, passing him over. Ethan insisted. Together they rode the elevator to the conference floor. Through the glass walls, Harper could see the crowd gathered in the main boardroom, shareholders, board members, employees, and at the center of it all, Ethan, standing. Tall despite 2 weeks of endless negotiations and sleepless nights. Bernard Walsh sat opposite him, his usual intensity now tinged with something else. Surprise, perhaps? Or respect? Before we take the final vote, Ethan was saying as Harper entered with Liam, I want to show you something. He nodded to Naomi, who dimmed the lights. On the screen behind him, footage from their documentary began to play. Not the polished episodes that had already aired, but raw moments. Ethan working from home, coordinating defense strategies while giving Liam his bottle. Harper's video calls from Asia, sharing victories and fears across time zones. Employees adapting, supporting each other, proving that success didn't require sacrifice. 2 weeks ago, Ethan continued as the footage ended, Mr. Walsh thought he could exploit our commitment to work-life balance as a weakness. He expected us to crumble under pressure, to abandon our principles in the face of crisis. Walsh shifted, in his seat, but remained silent. Instead, Ethan gestured to the room. We got creative, we adapted. Our distributed leadership model didn't just survive the crisis, it thrived. While I maintained my commitments to family, Oliver led our legal defense. While I worked from home, Victoria rallied industry support. And while my wife pursued her dreams across Asia, our firm proved that success isn't about individual power. It's about collective strength. He moved to stand beside Harper and Liam. The vote you're about to take isn't just about ownership. It's about vision. About whether we believe that business can be both profitable and humane. That ambition and presence aren't mutually exclusive. The numbers don't lie, McConnell, Walsh interrupted. Your firm's productivity has increased by 30% since implementing our new model, Oliver cut in, sliding reports across the table. Employee retention is up. Client satisfaction has improved. Turns out, happy employees do better work. And they're not the only ones watching, Victoria added. She clicked to a new slide showing headlines about their documentary's impact. Other firms adopting similar policies. Industry discussions about work-life balance. A movement growing from their example. Walsh studied the data, his expression unreadable. Finally, he looked up at Ethan. You've built something remarkable here, something I didn't think was possible. We all did, Ethan corrected, his hand finding Harper's. Every person in this room chose to believe in a different way of working, of living. Which is why, Walsh stood, straightening his tie, I'm withdrawing my takeover bid. The room erupted in murmurs. Harper felt Ethan's hand tighten around hers. More than that, Walsh continued, I want to commission both McConnell Design Associates and Harper's photography studio for a new project. Not just buildings this time, but spaces that reflect the values you've demonstrated. A legacy of balance, of presence, of purpose. Later that evening, after the celebrations had died down and the documentary crew had captured their final shots, the McConnells stood in Harper's studio. The walls were covered with photos from her international tour, not just architectural shots, but moments of human connection within Walsh's buildings. Did you ever imagine this? Harper asked, watching Ethan study her work while bouncing a sleepy Liam. When I called you about his fever that day, did you think we'd end up here? Building a movement instead of just buildings? Ethan smiled. No, but I wouldn't change any of it, not even the scary parts. Especially not those. He turned to face her. They taught us what we're capable of, what we can build when we build it together. Liam stirred, reaching for one of Harper's photos, a simple shot of a father and child silhouetted against a towering skyscraper. That's my favorite too, Ethan told their son. It reminds me of what really matters. Harper lifted her camera, capturing this moment, not for the documentary, not for the world, but for them. Her family, bathed in the golden light of a dream, realized, a balance achieved, a foundation secured. You know what this means? She asked, lowering the camera. The real work begins now, living up to the example we've set, helping others find their own way. Good thing we're not doing it alone. Ethan pulled her close, creating a family embrace that felt like coming home. After all, the best structures need the strongest foundations. Outside their window, Toronto's skyline stood as a testament to human ambition. But inside this room, the McConnells had built something even more remarkable, a blueprint for a life where success meant more than sacrifice, where balance wasn't just possible but powerful, where love was the strongest building material of all. And as the sun set on their story, casting long shadows across the city they'd helped reshape, they held on to each other, knowing that some legacies aren't built in steel and glass, but in moments of choice, in acts of courage, in the quiet victories, of choosing presence over power, love over legacy, family over fame. In the end, they'd constructed something greater than any skyscraper, a future where others could look up and see not just what was possible, but what was worth building, worth fighting for, worth choosing every single day. A blueprint for a life well lived, drawn not in lines and angles but in love and presence, in courage and commitment, in the delicate balance between ambition and connection. And that perhaps was the greatest design of all. If you had to choose between an important professional dream and a meaningful moment with your family, which decision would you make? How would you deal with this emotional dilemma that Ethan and Harper faced? What would you do differently? Ethan chose to be present when Liam was ill. even though he knew he could lose the biggest contract of his career. Harper decided to pursue her international photography journey, even when Ethan's company was at risk. These choices changed their lives forever. Have you ever had to choose between career and family? How do you balance your priorities? What lessons can we learn from this couple's journey? Your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment your thoughts. Your participation is very important to us. See you next time.